Before you disappear, my friends, say what must be said, not to get them back, not to change how it ends, but to leave something behind that they can't escape. A message, one sentence, clean, calm, unforgettable. This isn't a cry for love. It's not one last shot at saving something broken. No, this is the kind of message that leaves them wide awake at night, blinking at the ceiling, asking themselves, how did I let them slip through my fingers like that? This is not closure. This is consequence. And don't worry, I'm going to give you the message, word for word, the one that flips the script completely, the one that once sent does what begging never could. But before I hand it to you, I need to make sure you're in the right headspace to use it, because this isn't just a text. This is a turning point. You only get one shot at this. Once it's sent, you never chase again. This message is a lock. After this, your silence becomes sacred. Now I know some of you are already gone. You've walked away, blocked the number, changed the route home just to avoid passing by their energy. And I respect that. You didn't need a final message to close the door. You just vanished. And sometimes that is the loudest message of all. But even if you've already disappeared, there's still something here for you. Because you're still healing from what they never said. You still carry questions they never answered. And this message, it's going to help you finish what they left open. It's for your peace, not for their reaction. For those of you still hovering at the edge, still wondering if maybe just one more heartfelt paragraph might make them understand. Please hear me. Words never work on people who never listened. If they cared, they wouldn't have put you in this position. But now, they're about to feel the cost of your energy. And this final message, it doesn't ask for love. It makes them question why they ever treated yours like it was disposable. We're not going to write a poem. We're going to write a mirror, something so emotionally clean and controlled that it breaks through every defense in their ego, the kind of sentence that lands like thunder in a quiet room. You don't need to insult them. You don't need to explain. You need to say one thing with full emotional authority. And then, go ghost. That's the medicine. And yes, I'm going to give you that message. But first, I have to make sure you're done seeking permission. Because what I'm about to give you is not for the weak-hearted. It's for the healed, the rising, the reborn. So lean in, listen closely. What you're about to learn is not just a sentence. It's a shift, a reset, a karmicus correctio, and once it's delivered, they'll never unhear it. Their mind will play it back like a movie scene that ends too soon. And you? You won't need to watch anymore. You've already left the theater. If you feel this deep in your chest, if you're ready for the last words that set you free, write it in the comments right now. This time, I disappear. Say it like a vow. Say it like the door is closing for good. And if you're locked in, if you know what's coming is about to hit different, then hit that like button, subscribe, and stay right here. The message is coming. And when it lands, it changes everything. Number 1, why they needed you begging, and why this message destroys that. They never wanted you to move on. Let's just be real about it. They didn't want you healed. They didn't want you happy. They didn't want you thriving somewhere new, with someone who sees your worth without hesitation. What they really wanted, what they depended on, was your attachment, your obsession, your emotional loyalty, not out of love, but out of control. They needed to know that no matter how badly they treated you, you'd still come running, that your heart was theirs to toy with, that no matter how many doors they closed in your face, you'd keep knocking, hoping they'd finally answer different. But here's the truth. Your pain was their proof of power. You ever wonder why they got colder when you got closer? Why the more you gave, the less they responded? That wasn't random. That was control. Because people like this aren't afraid of losing you, they're afraid of losing control over you. That's a different kind of fear. And when you finally wake up, when you take a step back and see the pattern, it hits hard. Because you realize it was never about love. It was about emotional leverage. They didn't value your presence. They just counted on your persistence. And now you're holding something dangerous in your hands. Not rage, not revenge, but clarity. That message you're about to send. It's not just a goodbye. It's a declaration. It says, I'm not the same version of me you could manipulate. It says, I finally see you clearly. And folks, that is what terrifies them. Not your silence, but the reason behind it. Your detachment threatens everything they built their control on. Because once you stop trying to fix things, once you stop reacting, once you stop caring about the outcome, their illusion of control crumbles like glass. Let me give you a metaphor. Imagine you were in a room with them for years, handing over pieces of your soul while they sat in the corner, arms crossed, deciding how much you deserved in return. And every time you cried, every time you reached out, every time you begged, they felt taller, louder, stronger. You kept thinking if you just gave enough, loved enough, explained enough, they'd finally choose you fully. But they were never listening. They were watching, measuring, feeding off the attention, feeding off your confusion. You gave them emotional oxygen, and they inhaled every drop. But now, you've opened a window, you've let in your own light. And that final message, it's the door closing behind you. A calm exit, a silent mic drop. It says, I see the game, and I'm done playing it. And the beauty of it is, you don't have to scream. You don't have to explain. You just say what they never expected to hear. You are not worth another chapter. That line shatters everything. Because it tells them you've stopped hoping. You've stopped fantasizing. You've stopped leaving emotional breadcrumbs for them to follow. They'll read that message and feel the panic rise, because now you're the one with the pen. You're writing the ending, and it's not a plea, it's a period, a full stop. And trust me, they'll pretend they don't care. They'll brush it off like it's nothing, but you know better, because deep down, they've always feared the day you'd stop chasing. And that message, that's the final blow to their illusion. Not only did you walk away, you made sure they'd never forget why. Now let's be honest. It's hard to send a message like that. You'll second-guess it. You'll wonder, is this too harsh? What if they finally see me after this? What if I'm closing a door that could have opened someday? But that's the fear they count on. That's the fear they need you to stay trapped in. Because as long as you're hesitating, you're still under their spell. But when you hit send, when you release the weight, when you walk away without waiting for applause, that's when the healing starts. That's when your story shifts. That's when you reclaim yourself. Because the truth is, they never deserved a second chance to disrespect you. What they deserved was a silent goodbye and a life full of everything they couldn't give you. And guess what? That life is already waiting. On the other side of the send button, on the other side of detachment, on the other side of illusion. So, my friends, if you're ready to snatch back your power, not with drama, but with precision, then this message is your moment. Not a cry for help, a final mirror. You're not asking to be chosen. You're choosing yourself. You're choosing peace. You're choosing power. And when you do that, the illusion they built around your love burns to the ground, quiet, controlled, unforgettable. If this cracked something open in your spirit, I want you to write it in the comments right now. I break the illusion. Just 4 words, but they close 1,000 doors. Number 2. Psychological trigger. What they hear when you go silent after this. Here it is, my friends, the message, the one that doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't bleed. The one sentence that flips the entire dynamic, breaks the illusion, and hands them their own silence on a silver platter. And if you're really ready to heal, if you're really done performing for people who couldn't even show up, you'll send this and never look back. I finally understand. You're not who I thought you were. Take care. Let it hit. Let it land. Because that right there, that message will echo in their bones, not because it's dramatic, not because it's poetic, but because it's clear, calm, final. It leaves no hooks for manipulation, no cracks to crawl through. You didn't insult them. You didn't threaten them. You didn't ask for closure. You gave it to yourself. Let me break this down for the people in the back. I finally understand. This is the first trigger, because now they know you're no longer confused, and their power depended on your confusion, on your hope, on your inability to see things clearly. But this says you see them now. It says the fog is gone, the spell is broken, and the version of you that used to justify everything they did, gone, replaced by someone who's no longer playing the role of the fool. You're not who I thought you were. This is where the dagger turns, because now they know their mask slipped, the illusion shattered. You didn't fall in love with them, you fell in love with who you believed they could be. And when you say this, you destroy that dream in one sentence. You name the wound, and it hits harder than any paragraph ever could. And finally, take care. That's the knockout punch, not goodbye, not talk later, not I'll be here if you change. No, you're releasing them with peace, with control, with dignity. You've left the stage and turned off the lights. And now they're standing in the dark, holding a phone that no longer rings, reading a message that doesn't give them room to reply. And if they do reply, you won't be there to read it, because that was the final curtain. And you meant it. I know it's tempting to write more, to explain more, to unleash all the pain you swallowed just to survive them. But don't. Power is not found in paragraphs. It's found in precision. And this message, it doesn't give them something to fight against. It gives them something to live with. That's the difference. You're not screaming at them from across the bridge. You're walking off it and burning it behind you without looking back. This is what Stoicism looks like in love. Controlled, sharp, done. Carl Jung would say that when someone finally sees through the illusion, it forces the other person to confront their own shadow. And that's exactly what you're doing here. You're not punishing them. You're removing your light from their chaos and letting the darkness expose what they refuse to face. That's real power. So send it. Don't edit it. Don't water it down. Don't second-guess it. Copy it. Paste it. Hit send. And then disappear. Not for attention, but for peace. Let them sit with the version of you they'll never have again. And let that message be the only thing left of you in their life. One they can never unread, never unfeel, never undo. If you're ready to send that message, and you know deep down this was the final move your soul has been waiting for, I want you to go to the comments right now and type, "I understand, I'm gone." That's it. 4 words. And the rest? That's their lesson to live with. Number 3, the irreplaceable tone. Calm, clear, complete. There's a certain tone that stops time, not rage, not desperation, not a dramatic mic drop, just calm, clear, complete. That's the tone of a person who no longer needs to be chosen to know their worth, and that is the tone your message carries, the one we just gave you. It doesn't yell, it doesn't argue, it doesn't beg for understanding. It speaks in the quiet voice of someone who has finally come home to themselves. People expect chaos when they've wronged you. They expect drama, a fight, a flood of emotion they can twist into an excuse, because as long as you're emotional, they're still in control. They'll say you're overreacting. They'll say you're too sensitive. They'll use your passion to paint you as the problem. But when you come with none of that, when you arrive in their inbox with peace that doesn't need their validation, that's when they freeze. Because there's nothing to argue with. You've said everything without saying everything. You've just shown them exactly who you are now. Unreachable. Let's break it down again. That message, I finally understand. You're not who I thought you were. Take care. It carries a tone that they can't block out with ego. It doesn't scream, I'm hurt. It whispers, I'm awake. And when someone's power came from your confusion, your clarity feels like a sword. Sharp, silent, surgical. And the fact that it's so short, that's what makes it unshakable. You didn't need 500 words to say you're done. You needed one moment of truth, and it landed like thunder in a quiet room. See, my friends, anger makes noise, but real power, it makes space. And space is terrifying to someone who used to fill their emptiness with your attention. They won't say it, but the second they read that message, they'll know, they'll feel it in their chest, that you're not bluffing, that the old version of you is truly gone. And what's worse, you didn't even ask them to change. You didn't offer a roadmap to redemption. You didn't tell them how to win you back. You just walked. And you left behind a line they'll never stop decoding. And here's why that tone is so rare. It can't be faked. You can't pretend to be calm if you're secretly hoping they'll reply. You can't fake detachment if you're still craving closure. That message only works when it comes from truth, from healed silence, from real finality. You send it because you're ready, not because you want to spark a reaction, but because you're done playing roles you never auditioned for. This message isn't just an ending, it's a reflection. It forces them to see what they lost without handing them the blueprint to fix it. And that, my friends, is how you truly shift the dynamic. When someone can't find your emotional pulse anymore, they panic, not because they care, but because they no longer feel powerful. And that's what they were always addicted to, your response. And now, they don't get it. They get one line, and then nothing. So don't underestimate that tone. Don't water it down. Don't soften it with a maybe or a just wanted to say. No, that message doesn't ask for permission. It arrives like truth and leaves like closure. And whether they reply or not is irrelevant, because your healing isn't up for discussion anymore. If you feel this rising in you, if you know that tone is already sitting in your throat, ready to speak one final truth, then write this in the comments right now. Calm is my power. Say it like you've burned the script, like you're walking away from the performance. Number 4. No blame, no blood. Why clean endings leave the deepest cuts. When you walk away without blame, without venom, without dragging their name through the mud, that's when it hits the hardest. That's when the real damage sets in, not in your life, but in theirs. Because when you don't give them a fight, they don't get to play the victim. And trust me, folks like that need a villain. They need to believe you are unstable, too emotional, too dramatic, because if they don't, they're left with only one conclusion. They were the problem all along. That's why this clean ending, this short, clear message, I finally understand. You're not who I thought you were. Take care. Cuts deeper than any insult ever could. You didn't curse them out. You didn't explode. You didn't go online and expose them. You just ended it. With clarity, with grace, with silence. And that silence, it creates a vacuum that fills with their own guilt, their own regret, their own subconscious voice whispering, you let something real slip away. You see, my friends, chaos protects them. Drama gives them room to twist the story. The louder you are, the easier it is for them to dismiss you. But when you're calm, when you simply say your piece and disappear, now they're stuck with it, because they have nothing to argue with, no explosion to hide behind, no messy breakup story to tell their friends. All they have is a perfectly delivered moment of truth, and a door that's now closed for good. And let's be real, this is harder for you. It takes more strength to walk away clean than it does to blow everything up. It takes discipline to not hit send on that long message you drafted in your notes at 2 a.m. It takes power to let go without burning everything to the ground. But that's exactly why it works. Because when you end things with control, not chaos, you show them something they never thought you had: restraint. And that restraint becomes the mirror they can't escape. Carl Jung said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves," and that's exactly what your calm ending does. It doesn't give them closure, it forces them into confrontation. Not with you, with themselves. They're forced to sit in the reality that they had someone solid, someone loyal, someone real, and they treated it like a backup plan, like an option. And now that it's gone, they don't just lose you, they lose their own story. Because what do you do when the person you thought would always be there just isn't? They scroll your thread. They reread your last words. They sit in that message like it's a confession they never saw coming. And because you didn't assign blame, because you didn't start a fire, they're the only one standing in the ashes. That's what a clean cut does. It leaves no fingerprints, no trail, just silence. And that silence is louder than any argument ever could be. So don't doubt your decision. Don't regret not sending that long paragraph. This isn't about revenge. This is about freedom. You're not trying to hurt them. You're just finally refusing to hurt yourself, to keep them comfortable. And the moment they realize they can't spin this ending in their favor, that they lost you not because you were crazy, but because you were clear, that's when the pain starts to bloom. If you've ever struggled to end something clean, if you've ever wanted to scream but chose silence instead, then write this in the comments right now. I walk away clean. That's your line in the sand. That's your peace. Protected. Number 5. The internal replay effect. How your words loop in their mind. Once you hit send on that message, I finally understand. You're not who I thought you were. Take care. You don't just exit the conversation. You enter their head. And not for a moment, not for a day. You loop over and over. Because when someone who once craved your attention suddenly gets your indifference instead, their mind doesn't rest. It replays, rewinds, over-analyzes. You didn't just speak, you planted something, and now they can't stop watching the replay, frame by frame, trying to figure out what just happened. At first, they shrug it off. They act like it's nothing, but they felt it. Oh, they felt it. And when the silence continues, when no follow-up text arrives, when you don't chase like you always used to, that's when the paranoia starts. Because they expected noise, they expected drama, but all they got was peace. And peace, when someone's used to chaos, is confusing. It exposes the fact that you're done for real this time, not pretending, not trying to get a reaction. Done. Now their thoughts start racing. Did they meet someone? How are they so calm? Did I matter at all? That one message becomes a psychological loop, not because it said too much, but because it said just enough. And your silence wraps around it like a ribbon, final, clean, no open ends. They can't fight with it, they can't twist it. All they can do is feel it, and the feeling won't go away. Here's what happens next, my friends. That message becomes a mirror they didn't ask for. The first time they read it, it just lands. But the second time, they start reading between the lines. The third time, they start reading their own flaws into it. Your calm detachment forces them into self-reflection, not because you shamed them, but because you finally stopped trying to be understood. That silence becomes their private punishment. No courtroom, no jury, just their own mind, playing the scene on repeat at 1 a.m. when the world is still and the truth gets louder. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." And your final message just pulled their unconscious into the light, not with a fight, not with a threat, but with a quiet moment that now echoes in their spirit like thunder. They'll check your page, they'll revisit the message, and even if they act like they've moved on, that line sits with them. Because it didn't come from weakness, it came from evolution. And that's what drives the loop, not the message itself, but who you had to become to send it. The version of you they thought they had wrapped around their finger suddenly became someone they can't reach. They don't know how you got here. They just know they don't recognize you anymore. That's why they reread it. That's why they keep mentally replying to something you'll never respond to. Because they didn't lose the old you. They lost the new one. The one who finally sees clearly. The one who finally left. So don't check if they've seen it. Don't wait for a reply. That's not the win. The win is knowing they're still thinking about it, long after you stopped. That message doesn't need a response. It is the response. It closed the chapter and they're left holding a book they never bothered to read until it ended. If you know they're replaying your silence, if you can feel that message echoing in places they'll never admit, then type this in the comments right now. Let them replay it. Say it like you've reclaimed your power. Say it like you've finally turned the page. Number 6. The shadow shame. They'll pretend they're fine, but they're not. You've seen it before. On the outside, they look fine, laughing, posting, living like nothing happened. It almost makes you question if they ever cared. And that's the trick, isn't it? They wear detachment like armor. They act like your absence doesn't even graze them. But inside is a different story entirely. Because when you sent that final message, "I finally understand. You're not who I thought you were. Take care." You didn't just walk away. You awakened something they've been trying to outrun their entire life. Carl Jung called it the shadow, the part of a person that holds everything they deny, suppress, avoid, guilt, fear, shame, and they've built their identity around avoiding it. That's why they needed you confused. That's why they needed you to keep performing. Because as long as you were trying to prove your worth, they never had to look at their lack of it. But the moment your message arrived, calm, sharp, clean, that shadow started to stir. And now it's alive. Now they're haunted. Not by what you said, but by what it made them see. Because your words were not an attack, they were a mirror. And mirrors are brutal to someone who's been pretending their reflection doesn't exist. They'll pretend they're fine, but they're not. They'll distract themselves with people, parties, distractions. But at night, in the quiet, your sentence plays back like a truth they've spent years trying not to hear. You're not who I thought you were. That line alone breaks the mask. Because now they know. They fooled you, and they still lost you. And that stings more than anything. And here's the secret they'll never tell anyone. Your message didn't just hurt their ego, it triggered their shame. Because you didn't scream, you didn't beg, you left with grace. And now they're stuck with the question, why didn't I see it sooner? Why didn't I treat them better when I had the chance? What kind of person lets someone like that go? Those questions don't fade, they grow louder, especially when no one else in their life gives them the depth you once did, when the replacements start to feel hollow, when the noise they filled their life with no longer drowns out the emptiness inside. That's the thing about the shadow, my friends. It doesn't forget. You can ignore it, bury it, pretend you've moved on, but it waits. And your message? It flipped on the light. They'll pretend they're still in control, still unaffected. But behind every smile is a silent echo of what they lost. And the worst part? They can't blame you anymore. You didn't curse them out. You didn't explode. You left clean, and that leaves only one person to blame: themselves. So no matter what it looks like online, don't fall for the mask. The guilt is in motion. The shame is alive. Your silence became the trigger that cracked their carefully constructed identity, and now they have to live with the version of themselves they showed you, a version that cost them something rare, something sacred: you. So stand firm, don't reach back, don't question if the message mattered. It did, it still does, and while they smile in public, they bleed in private. That's not your punishment, it's their process. You're not hurting them, they're finally feeling the weight of everything they ignored. If you know that shadow has been awakened, if you can feel the shift even in their silence, then write this in the comments: shame doesn't lie. Say it with certainty. Say it with calm. Number 7. When your disappearance feels like justice. This is the moment everything flips. The shift they never expected, the consequence they never calculated, because as powerful as that final message was, I finally understand. You're not who I thought you were. Take care. What really breaks them isn't what you said. It's what you did after. You disappeared, not with bitterness, not with noise, but with peace, with stillness, with certainty. And that, my friends, is what begins to feel like justice, not revenge, not punishment, but justice, the natural balance of energy coming full circle. Because now they're sitting in the very reality you once begged them to see. That love isn't immortal when it's mistreated. That people do leave. That attention isn't infinite. That silence isn't always a game. Sometimes it's the final sentence in a story they didn't think could end. They didn't lose you in the message. They lost you in the days after it, in the absence, in the non-response, in the fact that they can't access you anymore, not emotionally, not spiritually, not energetically. You see, they expected you to flinch, to come back, to follow up with a late-night text asking if they were okay. That's the pattern. That's the loop you always played into. But this time you left for real. No hint, no cliffhanger, just gone. And it's in that vanishing that the lesson hits hardest. Because here's what most people never understand: when someone always forgives, always stays, always explains, it creates delusion. It makes the other person believe your love is unconditional, even in their worst moments. But when you remove yourself without warning, when you leave them alone with your last words and nothing more, it shakes them. They go from feeling superior to feeling suspended, like they're frozen in time, stuck in the exact moment they realized you're not coming back. And that realization is brutal, because now they can't unfeel your absence. It's in the air, in the silence, in every place they expected you to be. They open their phone, hoping for a sign of you. Nothing. They post, waiting for your reaction. Nothing. They send a half-hearted message, thinking you'll respond like before. Still nothing. And that's when it sinks in. You're gone. Not blocked, not ghosting, just done. And that, ironically, is more terrifying than hate, because hate still shows you care. Silence shows you've risen. Carl Jung said, "What you resist not only persists, but will grow in size." And now they're resisting the truth, that you're no longer theirs. that you outgrew the version of yourself who tolerated being forgotten, overlooked, dismissed. And because you disappeared with dignity, not drama, there's no one else to blame. They're stuck holding the guilt, the shame, the echo of what they lost. And justice? It doesn't come with punishment, it comes with reflection, and your absence gives them nothing but time to reflect. They may not admit it, they may never tell you, but trust me, they feel it. They feel the weight of the door they never thought would close, and the silence behind it. It's not quiet, it's loud with memory, with questions, with regret. You don't need to punish them. Life is doing that now. Through every replay, through every empty inbox, through every failed attempt to replace a connection they never took seriously until it vanished. So don't doubt the power of your exit. Don't question the message. Don't break the silence, because your disappearance is the justice their behavior called in. And your peace? It's the loudest consequence they never saw coming. If you feel this in your bones, if you know your absence is doing the teaching now, then write this in the comments. My silence is justice. Let it be your final word. Number 8. If they return, let them sit outside the gate. If they come back, and trust me, they will, it won't be for the reasons your heart once hoped for. It won't be because they suddenly evolved into the person you deserved. It'll be because your silence, your calm, your clean exit left a void they can't fill. Not with distractions, not with rebounds, not with noise. Your absence did something no version of your presence ever could. It exposed them. And now, with no emotional supply, no reaction, no version of you still orbiting their world, they'll try to creep back in. But this is where you must stay sovereign. This is where you learn to stand at the gate of your healed life and not flinch, because they're not returning because they love you right. They're returning because they can't live with the version of you that walked away without looking back. And that's not love. It's ego. That's not change. It's fear. They don't miss you. They miss the control, the attention, the old access. But the door they once kicked open is now guarded by boundaries, and the version of you they knew? Gone. So if they message you out of nowhere, if they show up with the classic, "I've been thinking about you," or "I realize now what I lost," don't get swept up in the performance. Pause, breathe, step into your clarity. Ask yourself, is this real, or is this regret dressed in nostalgia? Because there's a big difference between someone who wants you back and someone who wants to feel better about losing you. You see, when someone has lived in the comfort of your forgiveness, your empathy becomes a doorway they think they can walk through whenever they want. But not anymore. Now you hold the gate, and standing firm doesn't mean you're bitter. It means you're finally being wise. It means you've learned that closure doesn't require a sequel. That sometimes the lesson was the love, and the goodbye was the gift. Not every return deserves a re-entry, and not every apology earns your energy. Carl Jung said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." So understand this. Their return isn't always about you. Sometimes it's about avoiding their own guilt. You became the most graceful reminder of their failure, and now they want to rewrite the ending, not to love you better, but to soothe their shame. That's not your job. That's not your responsibility. That's their reflection to deal with. So what do you do if they show up? You let them sit outside the gate. You listen, but you don't leap. You observe, but you don't offer. You stay seated in your peace. And if, by some miracle, they've truly changed, you won't even need to ask. Their actions will tell you, their consistency will show you, their accountability will prove it. But until then, you owe them nothing. And if they ask why you're not the same, why you're distant, why you don't rush to fix what they broke, you simply remind them, "You taught me silence. Now I live in it. And that, my friends, is how you keep your power. Not with revenge, not with cruelty, but with discernment. If you feel this in your soul, if you've come too far to open that gate just because they remembered your name, I want you to write this in the comments. The gate is guarded. Say it like a declaration. Say it like you've finally come home to yourself. Hit that like button, subscribe. Your silence spoke. Your clarity landed. And now you're free.